This channel has been set up to make sure that anyone can observe our democratic meetings. Please therefore remember that this meeting can be watched at any time by anyone with an internet connection. There is a delay between the meeting and the broadcast of approximately 30 seconds. There are subtitles on the YouTube broadcast. These are generated by YouTube. The Council is not responsible for these subtitles nor their accuracy. Webcasting officer, please confirm the broadcast is running.
That is confirmed.
Thank you. Good evening and welcome to this meeting of the Local Plan Subcommittee on Tuesday, the 20th of April 2021. Before we commence with the proceedings this evening, I can confirm that Braintree District Council has adopted some basic etiquette rules for its meetings, and these are as follows. Please only speak when the chairman invites you to do so. Members, please let the chairman know that you wish to speak through the chat function. The chairman will introduce speakers in the order at which the request to speak has been made, unless there is a point of order at which we will give way. Please minimise all distractions while you are in the meeting. Members are asked to mute your microphones when you're not speaking and to consider turning off your video connection to this meeting if you have interference on your audio. Please bear in mind that there is a lag between speakers and other attendees hearing you. Presentations this evening will be shared by officers on their screens. Please indicate on the chat function if there's any problems with viewing these presentations. When referring to the report, please quote the relevant page and paragraph number. There is no private business for tonight's meetings. However, please can remind members it is your responsibility to make sure that should we move into private session, that your connection and venue is private. If you lose connection at all, please rejoin the meeting and I will readmit you. If you have persistent problems, please contact me on the extension that has been provided. Please only use the chat function for the purpose prescribed for requesting to speak or for a point of order. The chat function is subject to the access to information regimes of FOI, EIR. It is also subject to data protection, rules of defamation and the Council's Code of Conduct. To assist with managing the meeting in the chat function, the agenda items will appear. The members of the Local Plan Subcommittee are the Chairman, Councillor Gabrielle Spray, and the Vice Chairman, Councillor Wendy Scattergood, and the remaining members are Councillor James Abbott, Kevin Bowers, Graham Butland, James Coleridge, Tom Cunningham, Tony Everard, Patrick Horner, David Hume, Paul Thorogood, Justin Wrench. There are officers in attendance for these meetings. This is Julia O'Hara, Senior Planning Policy Officer, Alan Masso, Principal Planning Policy Officer, Emma Goodins, Head of Planning and Economic Growth, Kim Cole, Head of Governance and Monitoring Officer, Alison Webb is the Governance Officer who will be taking the minutes for this meeting, and I am Emma Wisby, I am the meeting facilitator. Chairman, for this evening, we have apologies from Councillor David Hume and Justin Wrench. I can confirm that the meeting is quorate and may proceed. Chairman, before handing over to you, please can I just connections to the members who have joined this meeting since we've opened this proceedings. So first of all, can I please start with Councillor Scattergood. Councillor Scattergood, can we test your connection, please? Members, it appears that we have problems with Mrs. Scattergood's connection, so I'll move on to Councillor Everard. Councillor Everard, can you test your connection, please?
Yes, thank you, Emma. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Abbott, could we test your connection, please?
Good evening, Emma.
Thank you. And Councillor Thorogood, welcome to this committee. Can we test your connection, please?
My PC decided to crash. Sorry about that.
Sorry, Councillor Thorogood, your connection's a little bit broken up. Could you just do that again for me, please?
Yeah, sure. Hopefully you can hear me now.
We can. If you do find that you experience problems with your connectivity, please consider turning off your video so you have a better audio link to the meeting. Thank you.
There is a problem in Coggeshall at the moment with internet connection.
Okay,
so.
Thank you very much. And Mrs. Scattergood, can we test your connection, please? Councillor Scattergood, if you can hear me, please, could we test your connection?
She has switched her camera off. I'm guessing she might have some problems.
Chairman, if I may, I will hand the meeting over to you. I will monitor Mrs. Scattergood's connections and will assist where I can. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Emma. Thank you very much. Right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Local Plan Subcommittee. I'd also like to welcome any members of the public who are watching via our YouTube channel. My name is Councillor Mrs. Gabrielle Spray and I will be chairing this meeting. I'm being assisted by a governance officer and a meeting facilitator who will help me identify when people want to speak and manage notifications through the chat function. I would especially like to welcome Councillor Mrs. Wendy Scattergood. I'm hoping she can hear me, who is well, new to this committee. She has been on it previously, has had a break for a little while and is back and is my vice chairman. And also I'd like to welcome Councillor Paul Thorogood, who has just joined us for the first time this evening. I was going to say I obviously can't see all of you, which is usually the case, but actually I think I can this evening. Nevertheless, if you want to speak or make a comment, can you please use the chat function and remember to mute your microphones when you finish speaking. And for this meeting, when I seek your agreement, I will take silence as assent. When it comes to the vote at the end, I will be doing a call of committee names. So as the meeting facilitator has confirmed the attendance, and I think we've done as many microphone checks as we possibly can, I will move on to the business of the meeting. So item 1, apologies for absence, which, as Emma said, we've already had apologies from Councillor Justin Wrench and Councillor David Hume. Everybody else is with us. Declarations of interest. Councillor Butland, you indicated a DOI.
Yes, Madam Chairman, I declare an interest as a member of Essex County Council. I have had no part in the formation of the County Council's policy or indeed taken part in any County Council scrutiny of that policy. I have, however, in the last few weeks, spoken with the portfolio holder at the County Council with my district leader hat on to express my disquiet at the timing of the consultation process coming as it is now. The other declaration of interest is that I, as I suspect most of us will know, have known the public speaker, Councillor Mitchell, for many, many years. I intend to stay and participate in the debate and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Butland. Yes, I can declare actually a joint declaration of interest for Councillor Mitchell, so I think most of us know him. Councillor Abbott, you were next, please.
Yes, thank you. Likewise, I am a member of Essex County Council. I am also a member of the site liaison groups for both Bradwell Quarry and Commons Quarry. I haven't taken part in it. I haven't had any part at all in the formation of the Minerals Plan Review, but I was involved, as a number of other members were involved, in the original planning inquiry back in, when was it, 2013, I think. So I'd take advice from officers as to whether they think there's any interest there which tips me over the line, but I don't believe so, and I certainly haven't had any part in the current review process. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Officers, Emma or Kim, would you just like to confirm that it's perfectly in order for Councillor Abbott to stay and vote?
Many thanks, Chairman. On the basis that the engagement was previous and that he hasn't, Councillor Abbott has not had any engagement in the review that's before you today, I'm happy for Councillor Abbott to remain at this stage.
Could I just say, I forgot to mention, similar to Councillor Butland, I did ask about the timing of the review as respect to PERDA, but that was the only question I asked, and the answer came back that they were content they could proceed.
Fine, thank you, Councillor Abbott. I don't see that anybody else has got any declarations of interest. So in that case, I think we can move on to item 3, previous minutes. Members, for this item, I'll be seeking your agreement, so silence will be taken as assent. However, if a member wishes to raise any issue in respect of the minutes, please do indicate via the chat function. So we're looking for approval of the minutes as an accurate record of the meeting held on the 4th of February 2021. I don't see anybody has any issues with that. Good, thank you very much. Right, we'll proceed to item 4, public question time. Members, we have one registered speaker for this evening, so I would like to invite County Councillor Robert Mitchell to make a statement regarding Agenda item 5, Essex Minerals Local Plan Review Consultation. Welcome, Councillor Mitchell. Would you like to make your statement, please? You have up to 3 minutes, but we've had a copy of your statement and I don't think you're going to need 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I don't think I should. I should declare that although I'm Deputy Cabinet Member for Highways and Infrastructure at Essex County Council, I'm speaking purely in an individual capacity as the member for Braintree Eastern Division. So I'll keep my statement short, but having read the report in detail, I would like to commend the Council on the proposed response in paragraph 8 on behalf of the residents that I currently represent, as previously mentioned. With concerned residents surrounding the outskirts of the wider quarry area in a sector from west through north to south, I very much believe that the detail in the response will adequately satisfy and reassure the many concerns of those that I've spoken to or have contacted me over the recent months and the last few years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell, very much indeed for your statement. There are no other speakers, so we will now proceed to agenda item 5, Essex Minerals Local Plan Review Consultation. Members, this report is set out on pages 5 to 15 of your agenda. And please can I invite our officer, Julie O'Hara, Senior Planning Policy Officer, to present a report. Julie, over to you.
Thank you. This presentation concerns the review of the Essex County Minerals Plan Review. This 2014 plan was adopted and runs from January 2012 to December 2029 inclusive. Regulations require that local authorities update their development plans every 5 years and assess if the policies need updating. The public consultation period runs from the 18th of March to the 29th of April, and we are hoping today to agree a response to that. The mineral plan covers a range of minerals, as can be seen on the list. Not all of these are mined in Braintree District, and there are no allocations other than for sand and gravel. Brick clay is mined at Bulmer, but reserves there are expected to outlive the plan, and so there are no allocations for that. Any applications for these other minerals other than sand and gravel that do come up within the plan period will be determined on their individual merits according to the review.
I think we lost Julia. I think I'm correct in saying you froze, or we lost you for a moment there. Or was it just
where had I got to when the freeze happened?
No proposals for minerals other than sand and gravel. I don't know if it was just me or whether everybody. Oh, was it just me? Oh, right. Okay. Right. Carry on. I'm back.
Okie doke. Right. I'd finished outline. I'd listed mentioned the list of minerals that the plan covers.
Yes.
Yeah, and mentioned that brick clay is mined at Bulmer. There are no allocations to extend that mine, and the reserves there are expected to outlive the plan. Any applications which come up for these minerals other than sand and gravel will be determined on their individual merits according to the review. So the main issues relate to sand and gravel. I think we know that really. The 2014 Minerals Plan sets out the policy framework within which minerals applications are determined and sites allocated. It sets out the background which feeds into the strategic and development management policies, including economic and environmental factors, such as growth and infrastructure projects. And the plan sets preferred and reserved sites. It sets policies in implementation and includes individual site profiles. Braintree District objected to the 2014 Minerals Plan on the basis set out in the agenda that the concentration of allocated sites in one small area of Essex, namely Braintree District, fails to meet the plan strategy for a geographic dispersal of sites across the county, and therefore fails in its target to minimise mineral miles. Also, that the cumulative impact of this concentration of mineral sites had not been adequately addressed. However, these concerns were put to the local plan examination inspector. They were discussed. However, he did not agree and did not alter the sites that were allocated in the plan. For the review, no new sites have been added or removed, and the total amount of sand and gravel to be extracted over the plan period remains the same. Sites A6 and A7, Bradwell Quarry, have been reclassified from reserved to preferred. This plan shows the location of the minerals extraction sites within our district. So we have Broadfields Farm, Rain, to the northwest. We have Coleman's Farm to the southeast, and Bradwell Quarry to the northeast. And the next slide shows these sites in more detail. So Coleman's Farm, Little Braxted Lane, Rivenhall. Since the 2014 plan was adopted, planning permission has been given for this site, and that was given in 2016. The plan shows the local plan review allocation, and I believe a further application has been made, that was made in 2020, but no outcome as yet. This site is Broadfield Farm, Rain. Consent was granted in 2019, and further submissions have been made to sort out various planning conditions, but that is progressing. This is Bradwell Quarry has been subject to a number of applications since 2014. A3, A4, and A5 have received consent, while A7 has received a resolution to grant consent subject to legal agreements being signed. Of those sites, only A6 remains without a permission. However, the operator has informed the county that a permission will be sought before the end of the plan period. It has come to the attention of officers that proposals are in the process of being developed by the Environment Agency for a flood alleviation scheme adjacent to allocation A7 of the Bradwell Quarry sites, and the excavations would be undertaken by the site operator. This is not in the plan as an allocation, but it's appropriate that members are aware of its existence and its relationship to the site. Now, I don't know if you can see my cursor on the screen. A7 is this site down here. That is A7. So you can see how close those are located to each other. The plan review seeks to strengthen wording in relation to climate change throughout the plan. In particular, it seeks to minimise energy and water consumption, reduce carbon emissions by reducing mineral miles, include climate resilience measures. In the past, there has been an emphasis on the restoration of mineral sites to agriculture. And here in the review, it seeks to also consider restoration to other functions such as green corridors, wildlife refuge areas, creation of priority habitats, and provision of net gain for wildlife. There is a change of emphasis on the location of mineral recycling facilities. Instead of preferred named strategic locations, there were 4 of those, the plan will allow such facilities to be located near growth areas as they arise. It now also refers to soil recycling as well. It seeks to promote the recycling of building materials and encourages on-site deconstruction and redevelopment sites to recycle on site where that would be appropriate. And this approach could have a knock-on effect on the amount of material available for use as fill in restoring mineral working sites. Hence, restoration will not necessarily be to pre-existing land levels, but be assessed on a site-by-site basis as to the level of restoration and the land formation which would be suitable. The review introduces a lot of detail regarding the safeguarding of mineral resource. It sets out consultation areas around mineral safeguarding areas. That would be 100 metres around these areas, but it wishes to be consulted on certain applications which it sets out, types of application which it sets out in the plan. It is seeking to avoid sensitive uses being located in these areas. It also wishes that some non-mineral uses proposed close to deposits. It wishes that applications for use for non-mineral developments do not sterilise these deposits, and it goes into detail as to how the procedure for doing so. Development is not necessarily precluded in these circumstances, but the extraction of mineral would be seen as needing to be included within the application proposals. Mineral processing infrastructure is also to be protected by a consultation zone, as these installations can be noisy and sensitive uses which are located too close to them can experience noise nuisance and probably other effects as well. So the mineral processing infrastructure is to be protected by a consultation zone of 250 metres. This last slide shows other areas where the review has updated the 2014 plan. There is more technical detail dealing with aspects of flood risk, such as considering the downstream impacts of dewatering lands, which occurs through mineral extraction. In various parts of the plan, the Essex Coast Recreational Avoidance Strategy, otherwise known as RAMS, is referred to, as that occurred after the original plan was adopted. And it seeks to increase awareness of the dry, in view of the dry climate, it seeks to protect potable water supplies. And in recent years, the health agenda has become more prominent, and the county wishes to include references to health and well-being in its consideration of proposals. It wishes EIAs to contain a section outlining the impacts of proposals on health and well-being. And additional text does mention the benefit. It goes into some detail on the opportunities and benefits that can come from restoration of extraction sites. And that is the finish of the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed, Julie, for your very clear and helpful presentation. Members, before I open this up, just a couple of comments from me. I know that our Head of Governance, Kim Cole, sent round some advice earlier to members about participation in the debate this evening. As has already been mentioned by Councillors Butland and Abbott, you know, we don't think this is the best move by County Council to arrange this consultation on quite a sensitive issue for this district during a pre-election period when we're in purdah, but you know, here we are. So just a reminder for the committee, but more actually for the benefit of the public watching via the YouTube channel who won't be aware of this. As per the advice from governance, please would, you know, all members, if you're asking questions or making a comment now, you know, stick to the facts of the report. This isn't the occasion to be straying into making, you know, political points. As I say, I realise that because we're in a pre-election period, it might put some constraints on what we can say, but we do need to stick to that. We have governance officers on the meeting with us this evening who will be keeping their governance ears open for any transgressions. So I would appreciate your cooperation with that. Just one more comment from me. The Minerals Plan, as members are well aware, it's Essex County Council's plan, but not ours. We are consultees, although our input is very important. The proposed response is set out in your agenda under point 8.1. We did provide a very robust response to the 2014 Minerals Plan, and in many respects, the proposed response this evening that we're looking at is not too different. We are continuing to express disappointment that the earlier objections to sites were not were not listened to by the inspector. He dismissed the earlier grounds for concern, granted permission for many of the sites, and many, if not all of them, are already underway, under development. There are a few, you know, new additions around recycling, as Julie pointed out, and also climate change, and then there's the flood alleviation scheme. So I think I will leave it there, members, and open it up to any of you for questions or comments. We have several officers apart from Julie on the meeting this evening who I'm sure will be able to answer questions if you have any. Councillor Abbott, I've got you down first, and then Councillor Thorogood.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yes, I'll be as careful as I can with my words. It's difficult when you've got quarries in your patch, so to speak. I very much agree with the approach the District Council has taken for many years now on this matter. And as Councillor Butland will recall, we decided to try and have a cross-council approach, which I think was very much the right thing to do. The only thing I would request is that the response to counties may be strengthened a little bit on a few specific points, which I'll just touch on. So Site A7 actually has now got planning permission, even though the review is proposing to call it a preferred site, which seems a bit anomalous. I don't know if that can be referred to. The second point I wanted to make is very much around the cumulative impact. So particularly for the Bradwell Quarry site, you've got Site A7, which now has permission, and the potential flood relief scheme, as it's called. You've also, of course, got the waste site, and they are pretty much in that same area. So I would request, please, that we include a reference to that, because the landscape impacts in particular are potentially significant. I think the point about minerals miles is a bit curious, really, because really what the impact local residents see is a lot more lorries on the road, although it's difficult sometimes to be sure whether those lorries are going to local development sites or whether they're all going to and from quarries, but there are a lot more lorries on the local roads. Specific to Site A6, and this has been raised with me by a number of residents over the years, that site includes the last part of the surviving World War II buildings from the airfield. And I'm just wondering if it would be possible if members would agree to include a reference to some form of protection or preservation of that when Site A6 comes forward. A number of people have said, I mean, they've been allowed to decay, but they are still extant. The buildings are still there. Yes, and that's all I had to say. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Officers, would anyone just like to come back on those points before I invite Councillor Thorogood to make his points? Who would like to go first?
I certainly can. They all sound very reasonable points, and I'm sure we can incorporate them into the response. I suppose there's just a question of do we agree that wording now, or do you perhaps delegate those final wording tweaks to Councillor Spray to approve, just so that we've got that for the because I think we've got another week until we need to get the response in. But the premise I think of all of them is valid, and we can add wording into that effect.
Thank you, Emma. Councillor Abbott, how do you feel about that being delegated to me? And obviously, I can, inform you of what changes there might be in the way of strengthening the wording.
Yes, I'm fine with that. I mean, if you wanted to, advise me of what you proposed, that'd be absolutely fine. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Good. Absolutely fine. Okay. Thank you. Right, Councillor Thorogood, I think you were next.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, I'd like to agree with what Councillor Abbott said about the World War II buildings, and in particular the Polish camp, which is on this site, which I think will be surrounded on 3 sides by A6 when it's dug out. So I just wish to agree with that about some sort of preservation order going on that site. I'm surprised it hasn't been more developed in the past as some sort of site, because it is of quite a strong historical interest, because there's quite a strong Polish connection in the area. There's lots of Polish names around this area still, in Kelvedon and Cressing and Coggeshall. So it does have a big history to play in that respect. Just in regards to A7, I see it's got planning permission, but it does make my shoulders drop, because it's A7 isn't contiguous with the rest of the sites. It juts out quite some considerably way, and it is a very large site. 6,500 tons, I believe, of minerals would be extracted, and that it will abut Cuthedge Lane, which is very well used, especially during the pandemic, but just generally by joggers, cyclists, walkers, horse riding, families going for walks. It's been a huge lifeline for people to get out and get a bit of fresh air and change of scenery. And it's such a shame that there's going to be a quarry on the left-hand side as you walk, or on the south side, if you like, sorry. I use that lane a lot myself, and there's a huge variety of wildlife. There are buzzards use it, yellowhammer. You see hares running around there. It's huge amount of wildlife, and it's such a shame that it's going to be dug up. And my other main concern with A7 is that it does, because it's not contiguous with the rest of the site, it does set a precedent, I fear, for the other side of the north side of Cuthedge Lane, which is the proposed Coggeshall Quarry and flood alleviation scheme. Because if you draw a big circle, then they basically join up if they were both to go ahead. So I am worried about that it does set a precedent, because initially, I think when the A7 plans, if I remember rightly, came about, it was it was an either-or project. It was going to be A7 or it was going to be the Coggeshall Quarry. Now it seems to be both. Although I know they're not introducing this into the plan, but I just think in the future, because I believe A7 has a life of a 7-year dig life, which takes us almost up to 2029. And I just fear that the next thing that's going to come will be the Coggeshall Quarry. Also, just in a broader sense, to do with climate change, I mean, I'm glad to see that they're using little climate change terms and they're very concerned about it. But the overarching thing is, sand and gravel extraction and cement production, if it was a country in its own right, would be the third most polluting country in the world after China and America. That's how big and how impact, you know, the impact of sand and gravel and cement production has on the world. So there are other products that can be used for building. France is looking for all new public buildings to be, from 2025, to be 50% made out of sustainable products instead of sand and gravel and cement. So they're trying to get away from concrete, and I think we need to do so as well. Let me just think, was there anything else? No, that's it really. That was just I'm just worried about the precedent that A7 is going to set for the future. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Thorogood. Officers, does anybody want to come back on any of those points at all? I think in particular the one with regard to the A7 and Coggeshall quarry and possible future expansion.
So I'm happy to. I think as Councillor Thorogood said, so A7 is in the plan. The Coggeshall flood alleviation scheme isn't part of the plan, and therefore that will be subject to a separate planning application which ECC would consider, and if they considered it acceptable, then it would result in the extraction of a large amount of mineral in the area. We know that they have covered that off to a certain extent within the A7 permission, so they've got certain conditions around what may or may not be able to be worked at the same time, but certainly you'll see in part of the response, we've set out that we would like to see a master plan for the whole area, so that restoration, if the second site was to go ahead, will be considered as a whole, and the Essex County Council might want to consider it as part of this plan rather than separately. And if they don't, then at very least that windfall of sand and gravel, which will be substantial, needs to count towards the Braintree allowance, as it were, to make sure that they are factoring that in, and then other sites can come forward later, possibly outside of the plan period if needs be.
Right, thank you, Emma. I have Councillor Butland wishing to speak next. Councillor Butland.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Following on from what Councillor Abbott said, he's quite right. We did have a cross-party approach to this first time round, and I'm beginning to sense tonight that there's no difference again between us as we move forward. And both he and I do have significant quarries in our area, his that are being discussed tonight, and in the case of my area, A9, the Broadfield Farm at Rain, which is also a significant area. In a way, it's unfortunate if one looks at a map of Essex and the makeup of what is beneath the soil. The gravel runs right through the middle of Essex, and unfortunately a significant part of that through Braintree. Although the point we made, it seems several years ago now, was that there are other areas, particularly in towards the Colchester district, which could have been used as alternatives. But that was the case we fought, and unfortunately were unsuccessful at the time. I think the response that is proposed, I think, maintains the line that we put forward those years ago, but also updates it in the light of new information. I think some of the points that have been made tonight, and which Emma Goodings has said could well be incorporated in our response, I would be very happy for that to take place. Clearly, the longer term use of aggregates, as Councillor Thorogood was saying, yeah, other countries may set targets. I suppose the thing is, will they be achieved, etc. But at the moment, there is a demand, rightly or wrongly, for this type of material, and therefore that is going still to be needed. And of course, many of us can look at places which were mined 20, 30 years ago, and now we happily walk round them, the leisure facilities, the wildlife, etc. But of course, there is a significant gap between that first hole in the ground and completing the extraction and then moving on. But because somewhere has a quarry, in the longer term, and I accept that's not much comfort to people here today, in the longer term provides a sort of habitats which both suit the human species and the wildlife species as well. So, Madam Chairman, I think the response and the recommendation that should be issued to Essex County Council is correct. I think it might be helpful if you were able to share amendments to that response with members of the committee, and also particularly pick up the points that have been mentioned tonight. But against that background, I would be happy to move the recommended decision, which is set out on page 6 of our agenda, with that proviso that we will take other things on board that have been raised this evening, and you will share that with the committee before sending the response off. I would so move, Madam Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Butland. And yes, obviously, more than happy to share the amendments when they're done. Do I have a seconder, please?
Yes, I'll second.
Thank you, Councillor Abbott. Before I move on any further, Councillor Everard, you've indicated you wish to speak.
Yes, thanks. In effect, Councillor Butland has said a lot of what I was going to say, but the reinstatement of the sites is very, very important, and I was particularly pleased to hear about the green areas and the wildlife. So really, I haven't anything else to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Everard. I don't have anybody else indicating they wish to speak at the moment. So in view of that, members, the recommended decision and purpose of decision set out on page 6 of the agenda has been moved by Councillor Butland and seconded by Councillor Abbott. So as nobody else wishes to speak, I will move to a vote on that. And if you could just indicate for, against or abstain, please. Councillor Abbott.
For.
Councillor Bowers.
For.
Councillor Butland.
For.
Councillor Coleridge.
For.
Councillor Cunningham.
For.
Councillor Everard.
For.
Councillor Horner. Councillor Horner.
For.
Well done, thank you. Councillor Mrs. Scattergood.
For.
Great, thank you. And Councillor Thorogood.
Yes, for.
Good, thank you very much, members. That is unanimous, that response with amendments, which I will share before it goes back to county. So we have no other items of business on the agenda for this evening. So I can close the meeting at, I think it's about 6:40, I make it, roughly. And thank you very much for your attendance. Thank you to members of the public who've been watching via YouTube, and particularly thank you, members, for your measured responses this evening. I appreciate it's been slightly more tricky than usual, given the restrictions we're under with pre-election period. So very much appreciated by me and officers that you've stuck to the advice. And Emma, I will hand back over to you, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, before I ask the webcasting officer to terminate the broadcast on the Council's YouTube channel, I'd just like to remind you that the Council retained performance data relating to your links to this meeting. This data has been retained for the purpose, should we receive a legal challenge to the way we've held this meeting this evening. Webcasting officer, please can you terminate the broadcast and confirm, please?